Can everybody see the full screen
Mhm.
with the presentation? Fantastic. So start with, I want to be able to see my chat here too. So hold on one second and let me make sure that I can see that. So, oh, Jennifer's from Georgia. Welcome, welcome. My son is down in Alabama right now working for Boeing, and him and his wife just had a baby. And so I was down all last week, down visiting my brand new grandson, my very first grandbaby. So Alabama seems so far away right now.
Yeah.
I feel like a stalker. I'm having to like call him every FaceTime. I'm just like, can I just see his face? Just 1 minute, just let me see his face, and then I promise I'll leave you alone. So okay, fantastic. Let me just make sure I can see people as they're coming into. Perfect. Okay, perfect. You guys can't see those little things, can you? On your screen? Do you
Just,
see my little boxes like the chat box on the presentation, or do you just see the presentation?
I think I just see the presentation and I have
Okay.
my chat box on
Oh,
separately.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. Yeah, I need to have somebody sitting on the side of me and helping me out with this. So anyway, so I just want to first of all just welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I want this to be fairly informal, so please, if you have any questions, you can kind of just raise your hand or just, you don't need to mute yourself. You can just speak up and ask your question as we go. And I just want to make sure I kind of cover any questions y'all might have. Um, just kind of in real time. So we're gonna be kind of informal here, especially since we have a nice small group here so far. So um, I just want to, thank everybody for coming. It's nice to hear that, some of you got to the workouts, but I want to let you know that you do have access to the workouts. You'll have all next week have access. Even after the challenge is over, you'll still have it for all next week before the trainer eyes will kick you out. So if you didn't get a chance to do all the workouts, or maybe you missed one or two and you want to go back and finish it, or even if you want to go and do the workouts again, you can feel free to do that. You'll have them all next week. Um, yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know me, I know a lot of people. My name is Kim Duffy, and I am the owner of Strength and Nutrition, and I am also a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian since 1995 and a personal trainer for the past, gosh, it's almost 4 years now, which is crazy. Time flies. I mainly work with women over 40. Reasoning behind that is because I am a woman over 40. I am 54 years old. Um, and I absolutely love it. I know a lot about, hormones, perimenopause, postmenopause, and just kind of, I primarily, that's who I work with. So I work with women in person as well as virtually in like these group programs. But I work with a lot of women in person from they range from ages 45 to I actually have an 85-year-old client who I go and see once a week. So kind of seen all ages, all ability ranges, physical ability ranges, and I just absolutely love watching what um, making kind of small changes, whether it's nutrition or exercise, how it can just really empower women who might be thinking, oh, you know what, I can't do this. I'm, too old, or I'm too busy, or, whatever. They have these excuses, but I love to see women kind of make these changes and actually kind of gain confidence and actually learn to kind of really love their power and love their bodies. So um, anybody brand new to strength training? Anybody like, oh, never done this before in my life. This is kind of my first taste of it. Anyone, anyone? No, everybody has kind of done it before. Is anybody advanced? Anybody like done like like heavier weightlifting? Anybody, do it regularly 3, 4 days a week?
Used to.
Used
Hmm.
to. Oh,
Okay. All right. So at some point, but maybe kind of have gotten out of the swing of it. Okay. Fantastic. So everybody has tasted it before and kind of knows what they're doing or has done it before. So fantastic. So I basically tonight I just want to dive into the key principles of effective, and that's kind of my main word here is effective strength training for women, and most importantly, women who are 50 and over, because I think so often we have a lot of misconceptions and different ideas of what strength training is or what we should be doing. But I want to talk about kind of what works for us, what doesn't, and really, most importantly, how to make it something that we can stick with and be consistent with over the long haul, because I think that is definitely the biggest challenge for most people. So, my goal for tonight is basically I want you to be able to walk with just a little more clarity, a little more confidence about how to train in your body right now. Not your body when you were in your 20s or 30s, but your body right now, kind of with all the changes going on. So next I want to talk about, why what we did in our 30s or 20s is not why it no longer works right now. And the biggest thing is the hormonal chaos, right? So whether you are in perimenopause, we might have some people in their 40s in this. Perimenopause is basically when our hormones are kind of just going crazy, right? Oh, I gotta let somebody in here. Um, where our estrogen and our progesterone can really be high and low and high and low, and that can cause a lot of issues. That's why a lot of times in perimenopause we'll see our periods getting really heavy or being really light or coming every 2 weeks or spreading out and not coming, but maybe every 4 months or something like that. And then ultimately getting to that point where they stop altogether. And we hit that point, menopause. And menopause by itself is one point in time. Okay. It is that time when you have stopped having periods for 12 months. And then anything beyond that is called postmenopause. Okay. So a lot of people will be like, I'm in menopause. Well, no, you're in postmenopause, right? You're after the fact. Menopause is just that one point in time. So once we do hit that postmenopause, that the lower estrogen levels, the reason why it can cause such issues for women is that it can cause muscle loss. It can cause bone loss. That's why, we can all of a sudden we get bone loss and we can start to see that we're at much higher risk of osteopenia and osteoporosis. It can cause insulin resistance, meaning that we can start to see those blood sugars. Even though we're not diabetic, we can start to see those blood sugars starting to creep up. Or if anybody knows what a hemoglobin A1C is, that's how we know what our blood sugars have done over the previous 3 months' time. We can start to see that number creeping up. And all of that can lead to maybe increased fat storage. We might see specifically a little more fat storage around our midsection. Anybody see that? Anybody have that issue? I tell you, that is like one of the most common things that I
Yes.
hear from. Yeah. And it's frustrating because many women will be like, I am doing nothing wrong. I am doing nothing different. I am eating the
Mhm.
same I always have. I am exercising the same as I always have. But all of a sudden I'm seeing that weight just slowly creeping up, right? Or I'm seeing specifically that my body is changing, shape. I'm seeing more, weight around my midsection. Things are a little tighter. My pants are tighter. My shirts are tighter. So it's frustrating because it's just like, what am I doing different? What am I doing wrong? And the answer is you're not doing anything wrong. It's just absolutely kind of what your body's going through, and it's totally normal. It's natural. Um, the good news is that you don't need to work harder. Some women think like, I need to do more cardio, or I need to do harder exercise, or I need to restrict everything I'm eating and only consume 1,000 calories. And it's not a matter of working harder, it's a matter of working smarter. And that's kind of the whole point of this 5-day challenge here is, as well as tonight's call, is to talk about how can we work a little smarter. Okay. So first I want to just touch on what are some of the common mistakes that I see most often in women who are coming to me asking for help. So, first of all, like I said, most women are very comfortable doing cardio. They're like, oh, I walk 5 miles a day, or I walk on my treadmill at home every morning for 30 minutes. You do the elliptical, you do step class, you do aerobics. I personally, I call myself a lazy exerciser because in my 30s and my early 40s, I'd be like, yes, I'm very active. I go to the gym. And what do I do at the gym? I would get on an elliptical, a treadmill, or a bike for 45 minutes and I would watch TV, right? Because it was like, oh, it was a good way to distract myself as I was moving. And I was just doing those kind of same movements because I thought that it was all about, and I was a dietitian at that time too. Like, I'll have you know. So it's like I knew a lot about nutrition and I knew a bit about exercise and but I was still like that was my routine. And I wondered why, I wasn't seeing, oh, why am I not seeing, increase in strength or increase in muscle? And then all of a sudden I hit those mid 40s and things started going a little haywire. And what I was doing before was no longer maintaining my weight. I was seeing that slow, steady weight gain. Um, so and I didn't even start strength training seriously, ladies, until I was in my mid 40s. And here I'm 54. So it's been, about 9 years, a little bit less, that I really kind of doubled down and realized just the importance of the strength training. So some other things, mistakes that I see women making are they're scared to use heavy weights. I don't know. Do you ladies like to pick up a heavier weight? You like to challenge those muscles, or are you kind of I got 5 pounds or I got 3 pounds at home and I do a million repetitions? I see that really commonly at the gym, whereas women will be like, they look like they could probably just go forever doing those bicep curls. So we'll talk a little bit about why that might not show you the results that you're looking for. Okay, so another common mistake I see are women just doing random workouts. So it's like they'll come to me, they're like, well, I do Pilates on Mondays and I do step aerobics on Tuesdays and I do yoga on Wednesdays. And then I go and I jump from machine to machine at the gym, just to get my strength workout in. Common mistake. We'll talk about what we need to do instead. Next is not actually resting, not giving your body that chance to recover because you can work out really hard, right? But if you don't give your muscles that chance to actually rest and adapt, and in through that rest and recovery and adaptation, that's where we gain strength. That's where we get stronger. And that's where we gain muscle. So it's we want to challenge those muscles, but then we want to allow them time to rest. That's why this week in the challenge you saw that we did an upper body workout. And then we moved to a lower body workout so that we could allow those arms and that upper body to rest. And then on Wednesday, we did that flexibility and balance. And that was just a day to like, let's stretch those sore muscles. And then today was abs and core, right? And then tomorrow we're going to hit it hard with a full body. Okay, so you see that I'm working in just some rest periods there, giving those muscles time to rest. And then lastly, this is my most favorite. I love it when women say, but I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get muscular. Anybody ever heard that? Anybody ever worried
Mm,
about that?
no, no, but
No?
I've heard it.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's probably more maybe like older generation. Back when it was like that wasn't pretty or desirable for a woman to actually have muscles. Where I think nowadays it's more like, yes, you go, girl, right? You're strong. Um, but I think it's funny. So my answer to that fear of becoming bulky is typically like, do you think that if just because you drive a car, you're going to become a race car driver? No, right? Like we don't have testosterone. We cannot build muscle to that degree, especially once we hit our 40s and 50s. It is harder for us to build muscle. So you would have to be really working hard to get bulky, right? And you would have to be consuming extra calories and really challenging those muscles. So any of these, which one of these do you guys feel like you relate to most? Any of them? Anybody mainly do cardio? Yeah,
I,
Rose.
yeah,
Yep. Cardio is easy, right? Anybody
my
feel like they
favorite.
don't challenge themselves with heavy enough weights?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of stick to, and sometimes it can be a matter of like, oh, well, I don't have heavier weights at home, or or you don't have access to them. Anybody else? Anyone? Okay, let's move on. So now I want to chat a little bit about why these don't work. So first of all, cardio, it's not cardio is fantastic. Cardio burns calories, right? So don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you, oh, running, if you're a runner, that's bad, or if you only do elliptical, that's bad, or if you really love those aerobic step classes, that's bad. Absolutely not. Cardio is important. It helps us with cardiovascular endurance. It keeps our heart healthy. And it also helps us to burn calories, right? So cardio is very important to incorporate in, but strength training is most important. And I will talk about why that is, but let's move on here for this specifically. So next is why doesn't staying with those lighter weights work is because we're not challenging ourselves. And I'm going to talk about something called progressive overload here in a second. But staying with those same old weights, your body gets very used to them, right? And it doesn't challenge them. It doesn't fatigue them. And that is where you're going to see that muscle gain, is when you're actually pushing those muscles to get tired. So even if you say, but I can't do 20 repetitions with a heavier weight, that's all right. Then do 5 repetitions, do 6 repetitions, do 10 repetitions. Okay. Next, those random workouts. And I get it. It can be boring. We all like change and different and like, oh, but I really like to go to this class and that class. And I get tired of doing that same thing over and over. But the problem there is we don't see the progress with those. Our body doesn't, it's like we can't say, well, I did this movement every single week for 4 weeks, and I saw that I used to be able to use 10-pound dumbbells. Now I can use 20-pound dumbbells. There we can actually see that strength gain, right? Whereas those random workouts, it's kind of like if you haven't done push-ups in a year, you go and try to do a push-up, it's going to be hard as heck, right? It's because you haven't been training those muscles. You haven't been continually working on that skill. And then next, without recovery, just like I talked about, your body can't get stronger. And that's also where we can see more injuries. So you'll see sometimes like runners who are just go, 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 and they're running and pushing the mileage and stuff, they'll get stress fractures and they'll get injuries because of that. So we need to give our body that time. And then as we already discussed, that bulky myth, it's really nearly impossible at our age with our hormones. We don't have testosterone. We're not going to get too muscular. What we'll get is we'll start to see better muscle tone. We'll see that we lose inches because that muscle is smaller and more compact than fat, right? So that's where it's like maybe you don't see any change on that scale, but you still see that you've lost inches or that your pants are a little bit looser. And that's why it's more important to focus on those things than just that number on the scale. Okay, so now let's talk specifics. So how to train effectively. So the most effective way for us women is to be doing strength training. Okay, it should be the priority. And I think it's so interesting now that doctors are prescribing strength training for osteoporosis and osteopenia. They used to say calcium, 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 and made overload with calcium. And then they're finding that, oh, wait a minute, we're not seeing that is necessarily beneficial. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't consume calcium. Calcium is still important. And so is vitamin D, and so is vitamin K2. But strength training, they're finding that actually is even more beneficial. And I'm going to talk about one of my clients, a story about her and her bone health here later on in a little bit. And specifically how she actually saw that she gained bone mass, which is crazy for women our age, because typically we do hit postmenopause and we will see that our bone density just dive bombs. So typically it's hard. We don't feel like, we can't gain it, but that's actually a fallacy. we can. So, and the most effective way for us to exercise is that progressive overload. That is literally the secret sauce, ladies. And what you might ask, like, well, what the heck does that mean? What is it? And that's just a matter of us gradually challenging our body by increasing our repetitions, increasing the weight we're using, and increasing the number of sets that we're using. Oh, got somebody in the waiting room. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. Um, yeah, so progressive overload, that's where we're going to see that we're actually fatiguing the muscle. That is our goal. So when I create programs and like in my signature program, the Fit After 50 Plus program, we're doing the same movements for 4 weeks, right? So you're doing maybe 4 different workouts, but you're doing in each of those workouts, you're doing that same movement. So say it's bicep curls, right? So that first week, maybe you're doing 8 repetitions of bicep curls using 10 pounds. Then the next week, you do 10 repetitions using those 10 pounds. The next week, you do 12 repetitions using those 10 pounds. And then that fourth week, we go up and we actually do 4 full sets of that exercise. So you can see then by the end of that, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Now I bet I could use 12-pound weights and only do 8 reps. You see how it's like you're working up so that you don't even realize that you're actually able to increase that strength and increase that muscle with that overload. And you're not going to be able to see that if you're not actually repeating those same exercises. You're not going to see that progress and you're not actually going to really dive in and fatigue that muscle. Okay, so progressive overload, it is just truly, it is truly the best way to actually see results. The sweet spot is usually I tell women if you can do strength training at least 2 days a week, you can do it, 4 days a week if that works for you, but 2 to 3 is kind of that sweet spot. In the Fit After 50 program, I do give women 4 workouts, but I also say if you're right now, you're going from 0, you're like, I have never strength trained before. I don't know what I'm doing. I would say let's start with 1 for a week. Then let's increase to 2 for a week. It's all about where you are now and what fits best for you, kind of in your schedule. So that so 2 to 4 times a week, and then using compound movements. And what that means is we're just trying to hit all of those muscles, right? So if you think like squats, you think about rows with those arms, you think, oh, I'm just using my quadriceps or I'm just using my glutes or something. They're actually using more than that. They are compound movements. You are using more than just that one muscle group in that motion. And then lastly, and this one is super important, is that form is the key here, right? So sometimes when you're starting a movement for the first time, you're like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't know how I'm doing, if I'm doing it right. That's why I have that trainerized program. Somebody asked me like, oh, we don't have full length videos of you going through and doing that full workout. The reason why I don't do that is because I don't want you to be rush through your workout. And I also don't want to slow you down. Everybody's going to go at their own pace. But the most important thing is that you are learning how to do that movement properly, right? I don't want you to get injured. I want you to do it right so that you're really getting into that muscle that we're trying to work. Because sometimes people will be like, I'm doing this deadlift. I feel it in my lower back. So then we're going to stop and say, okay, we're not doing this right. We're not engaging our core properly because your core is going to lock in on that back and help you to not feel it in that lower back. Okay. And sometimes it's a matter of we need to strengthen that core first so that it actually can lock in and protect that lower back. So sometimes when we do that, I'm just like, put the weight away. We're not going to use weight right now. We're just going to do this movement and until that you feel comfortable that we're doing it correctly and that you're able to actually go, I can feel this in my hamstrings or I can feel this in my glutes. Okay. Not to mention slowing down that movement, not speeding through it. You're actually going to build strength faster. Okay, so it's like slowing down that movement because it's like more time under tension. So don't speed up your workouts, take it nice and slow, and you'll find that you actually gain strength faster. Okay, any questions? I'm going to stop for just a second just to ask, does anybody have any questions about anything I've talked about so far? Does it all make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay. So next I want to just touch on, I call it my strength ladder, but basically it's kind of the system or the framework that I use to create workouts for my clients. Like I said, who are women from 45 to 83. I'm going to use kind of the same idea or framework because it's not just about lifting weights, right? It's not just about that movement, increasing the weight. Excuse me. It's about what is so important at our age is building stability and balance, right? Ultimately, our goal, you guys, is to live a quality life. Live a life that we can continue to travel, we can continue to do everything that we enjoy, whether that's hiking or biking or playing with the grandkids or, gardening or whatever. We want to, this is not about, going and doing a bodybuilding competition. This is just about a positive quality of life. So I always incorporate in core work to build because core is it's the center of our balance. If our core is not strong and we wonder why we're off kilter all the time, is because it's so important when it comes to our balance, right? So when we build that balance and stability, we're going to decrease our risk of injuries. Because heaven forbid, as we get older, we know that, women break hips or you break a bone and you're laid up in the hospital, and it can really set you back a lot. So next is in all of my workouts, I move through trying to hit all muscle groups. Okay. So, whether it's shoulders or back or chest or your core, your butt or your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings. So like working the way down. Want to hit all of those muscle groups so that they're all strong, that you don't have weakness. And what's so interesting is that I always put people on one leg or the other, right? So it's called unilateral. So rather than doing everything with two legs or it's bilateral, we put you on one leg and women are so amazed that like, oh, wait a minute, my left leg is considerably weaker than my right leg. Or my left arm is weaker than my right arm. Oops, I gotta plug in my computer here. Um, so that's why it's so important to do those single arm or single leg exercises so that you can see those weaknesses and you can strengthen them. Because sometimes, if you've ever had an injury of any sort, if you've ever had or like hip surgery, or you've ever hurt your knee, or you've sprained your ankle or something, and you're limping or you're walking funny or you're using one arm versus the other, you will see that you start to compensate, right? You're like, I don't understand. Why is my right neck or my right shoulder always sore? And I always get headaches on that one side. Oh, we come to find out that remember when you hurt that left arm and you were doing everything with your right arm, and this muscle takes over for that muscle, and it's all your body is an amazing creation. It all works together. Okay. So um and I think one thing that's so interesting is as women, and men as well, but you have injuries and you think that just because, oh well, I hurt my back, so therefore I should not do strength training because I don't want to injure it. And it's actually the exact opposite, is that's all the more reason that you need to keep it strong so that you can protect it and you can decrease that risk of injuring it again. And also in the story I'm going to tell about Cindy, I'll tell you a little bit about her back issues and how things have changed so much since she has really stepped up strength training. So injuries are all the more reason. There's always something that you can do. Now, if you have, this shoulder injury, the doctor has told you you can't do anything overhead. Man, I got 5 other shoulder exercises I can have you do that never even lift overhead, right? There's always something that we can be doing. Maybe you have bad knees or bad hips. Maybe you do leg exercises seated. Maybe you use bands. There's always something that you can do to keep those muscles strong. And my 85-year-old client who uses a walker, there's a cable machine at her independent living facility, and she sits there in a chair and she lifts weights. And I'll tell you, that woman is so proud. People are walking by and she's showing off that she's doing these rows and she's doing extra heavy weights. It's awesome. I love it. Um, Okay, sorry, I got sidetracked. So I just want to touch. Like I was telling you, I use progressive overload, meaning you're doing those same movements and you're increasing, just continuing to challenge those muscles because that's where we're going to see that. And some people ask, like, well, what does that mean to challenge a muscle? Well, that means that you're using a weight that by the last couple of repetitions of that exercise, you're struggling to finish it with good form. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That doesn't mean that I want you to like, oh no, my back hurts because I went too heavy. That just means that, say you're doing that bicep curl and you're like, oh golly, it's hard to finish it. And maybe you go to that point where you're like, I can't do another repetition because my form is crap now. But you officially fatigued that muscle. You challenged it. And that is the goal. Um, and then another thing, like I talked about, is focusing on proper form. When I have somebody in front of me, I'm definitely going to continue to give them cues about engaging their core. I kind of can tell whether or not they can increase weights or if maybe we need to take a step back and lower weights. But that's why the Trainerize app is so nice because you can go, wait a minute, what was this exercise? Okay, I need to look at that. I need to watch that video. And then you get those cues, get in your head. And, after doing it a couple times, you're gonna remember it a little bit easier. So, um, what did y'all think of the Trainerize program? Did everybody like it? Did they think it was easy to use? Did anybody have, struggle with it at all?
I had an issue getting into it, but that was my
Yeah.
issue. Once I was once I was in it, I love the videos that you can go back to and make sure that
Good.
you're doing it right. Yeah.
Yeah. Did everybody figure out how to actually start the workout or start the program? And then you push that start, and then you can actually track, oh, I used this much weight and I did this many repetitions. And that's nice because then at the end of it, you can say, oh, I rate this at a 5 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 as far as how hard it was. Okay, so this is just kind of my framework that I use, and I use it for all of my programming, and it just kind of builds upon itself. And each person's going to be really different. Somebody might come in and be like, "Oh, core is no problem," or "I'm really stable, my balance is great," but maybe we need to build up their strength. And sometimes it can be like, "Oh, my arms are really strong, but my legs are really weak." So everybody is really different. So, all right, so. Anybody like look at this and go, this is an area that I need to work on? Anybody? Increasing the weight, working on core,
Mhm. All of it right now, but
maybe
Mm-hmm.
more
know my
consistency.
weak
Okay.
spots. Yeah. Yep.
Is anybody doing strength training 4 times a week right now?
No.
Not
No,
quite.
no, not quite. Oh, Jennifer said the
Good.
app was good. I like the videos. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. Okay, so let's move on. So I, of course, want to touch on nutrition because that is my sweet spot. I've been doing it for a long time, but I find it so often that there are people. Oh, Jennifer wants to be more consistent with her workouts. That's such a common one. Um, so sorry, I just got a brain fart, but nutrition is such an important piece. So, this week I wanted to just kind of make it simple and kind of think of one thing that you guys could work on. And it was primarily protein and then kind of balancing those meals a little bit. So you can see those kind of two top things in bold because those are the first things that I usually have my clients work with is like depending if you come in and you're like, oh yeah, I've been eating 120 grams of protein, no problem. I got that, down pat, then I would say, okay, let's move on to the next thing. But for most women, we're not getting enough protein. Okay. And sometimes it's just like, how much protein's enough protein? So this week we just focused on like, how can you get 25 to 30 grams in a meal? And I'd say lunch and dinner, that's kind of easy, but that can be challenging for breakfast. Anybody find it challenging? Does anybody like have no problem getting in protein? You get loads of protein in. Can anyone say that?
I feel like I do. I don't track it though.
Oh, Karen, I love chopsticks. You don't track it? Okay, yeah. So it's just kind of like, how do you know, right?
Right.
Well, if you think about if your goal is 25 to 30 grams, and we know that 1 ounce of meat or fish are going to have 7 grams. Oh, Looney says she doesn't eat meat. Okay, but you do eat fish. You can still get a lot of protein. And I actually have a vegan client who yeah, who really has upped her protein. But sometimes it might mean that you're having to do like a plant-based protein. Soy is also an amazing protein source, plant-based. Um, yeah, good quality protein. Yep, it can definitely be challenging. But especially at breakfast time. But anyway, so I think I started to say sorry. So 1 ounce of meat or fish is going to have 7 grams of protein. So if you're shooting for 4 ounces per meal, if you think about it, the palm of your hand is going to be like 3 ounces. So if you kind of want to just, you don't want to like track it or weigh it, that's an easy way to think about that. If you're not eating meat, the way we do that is we're going to add beans are a great source. Soy, which is also a bean, a legume. Different types of soy, edamame, tofu, um, natto, tempeh. Also nuts and seeds, although they can kind of get us, beef up our total fat intake. So usually I say, if we can do nuts and seeds maybe once a day. Um, And then we're going to get it from those whole grains too. We're going to get a small amount of protein from those. So just trying to get those whole grains that are, have the extra fiber in it. So the reason why we focused on those balance meals is because we're working towards blood sugar control, and that's a super important thing. I talk about that. We dive into that more in the Fit After 50 program, but blood sugar control is the best way to promote hormonal, to support our hormones. I'm not going to say balance because when you're in menopause or perimenopause, there's no balancing, right? You're not going to increase your estrogen or progesterone. They're going to go down regardless of what you're doing. But supporting our hormones, and what that means is typically insulin is a big one. um, there's a lot of different hormones in our body, but that's a big one. So if we can stop those blood sugars from being on that roller coaster, that is going to even out our energy levels. That's going to even out our cravings. It's just going to help us to feel more on that even keel. It can actually help with decreasing irritability when it comes with to perimenopause and menopause. Anybody have that problem? Eek. So anyway, so those two protein and balanced meals are the best, definitely the best ways kind of the first steps when it comes to nutrition. And then moving on to, um, sorry, fueling your body, it goes beyond just the protein, right? Because a lot of times we can find that we load up on protein, but then we're still seeing that weight gain. So since we only have 60 minutes tonight, I can't go into depth on all these different things, but we do take a full week in the Fit After 50 program if you're interested, to cover each of these areas in depth. But the first one is just, we all have different calorie, protein, carb, and fat requirements, and that's going to be based off of um, our height, our weight, our age, our sex, and our activity levels, and then your goals. Like, is your goal to gain muscle? Is your goal to lose fat? Is your goal to just be healthy? Is your goal to decrease your cholesterol? Um, so that's why in the Fit After 50 Plus Bootcamp, I do like a personalized macronutrient assessment for each person. I'm going to take just 1 second because I see that somebody asked a question here in the chat. And I'm having a hard time getting my, there we go. Okay. Yes, Karen says you really have to pay attention to amounts per meal, 100%. Because that breakdown, a lot of times, if you're, a lot of women will tell me, oh, I'm eating healthy all day. I don't understand why. My cravings are nuts and I'm shoveling food into my mouth as I'm trying to make dinner and I'm so hungry. And I usually can look back and say, well, that's because you haven't eaten enough for your breakfast and lunch, or maybe you had a whole bunch of vegetables with a tiny bit of protein for lunch. Well, no, that's not going to carry you far enough, right? That's not going to keep you feeling full and satisfied. I can see why you're, starving when you get home. Um, so figuring out how to kind of balance your meals with protein, carbs, fat, fiber is going to help you to feel a little bit more even keeled. Not to mention, if you're eating really light for breakfast and lunch and then you have this gigantic dinner and you go to bed 2 hours later, it's just not as good for sleep quality. Um, so, sorry, Karen asked which lab should we check for insulin resistance or blood sugar levels? Hemoglobin A1C, absolutely. I think that's the best one. You can get, obviously, just like your blood glucose is going to be one moment in time, right? So, if you go into the doctor and they check your blood glucose, that's just going to tell you what was your blood sugar doing at that point, whether you were fasting or not. But we can start to see that fasting blood sugar increasing if your hemoglobin A1C is higher. So that can give us a little insight. Another one is they can look at your serum insulin. So with insulin resistance, meaning your body is not as sensitive to the insulin that the pancreas is sending, it's not responding and bringing those blood sugars down. So that's where you can see higher levels of insulin in your blood. So they can look at your blood insulin levels to see if they're high to tell whether or not you have some insulin resistance going on. And those are really important. That's one lab I tell every woman that I work with. You should know what your A1C is, and if you are not diabetic, you should have that checked, especially if it's kind of on the edge. You should watch it to make sure it's not trending upwards.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, okay. So other things that are going to make a huge difference is just mindfulness. We need to stop as, at this age, many women, including myself, we've dieted, we've restricted calories, we've deprived ourselves of foods, we've cut out all certain food groups like carbohydrates, right? Or we've cut out fat. I've gone through all of the fads in my years as a dietitian, but we've done so much restriction that we almost have to change our mindset altogether. Figuring out how can we be more mindful? How can we actually listen to our body's cues? Is it hungry? Is it full? Rather than restricting ourselves. So mindfulness is a huge piece. And next is moderation. Um, Trying to stay away from the cheat meals or this food is bad or this, I can't have this because you know what? It's just going to make you want it all the more if it's a naughty food, right? So figuring out how can I allow myself, how can I have these treats? How can I have these things that I enjoy within kind of my healthy eating? Because we need to focus on the fact that this is long term, this is forever, this isn't a diet, this isn't a quick fix. And next, determining, I already touched on this, but those just balancing those meals, making sure that you're always getting the protein in there, you're always choosing the high fiber carbs, you're always choosing vegetables. So it's a nice balanced meal so it can slow that blood sugar spike. and affect your energy better. So, and then lastly, we do touch on, we spend a little time talking about alcohol, and it's not a matter of judgment or saying you can never have this, but it's just a matter of talking about how does it affect us? How does it affect our bodies? How does it affect our eating patterns? How does it affect our sleep? Um, so I think that's an important thing to touch on, especially, I've worked in the oncology world with breast cancer, and alcohol is one that women who have had breast cancer or who maybe have a significant family history, that's something they really need to take seriously because there is a strong connection between those two things. But when you kind of bring all of these pieces together, that's when, we can actually see like real, like long lasting change, not just this short term. So what keeps most women from starting a strength training program? One is fear. Fear of injury, fear of judgment, fear of failure. Is anybody afraid of like starting it or heaven forbid going into the gym and having to pick up dumbbells, with all these other guys standing around? What are they going to think of you? What if you don't look cool doing it? What if you don't know what you're doing? What if you start this, but then you don't finish it? Um, so we need to get over that. The next one is lack of time, which this is just such a common one. We're all busy, right? We're always pushing things off to,
Mhm.
I'll start when my life quiets down. And life's never quiet, right? There's always something. Or I'm going to do it after I get past the holidays, or I'm going to do it after I get past the summer vacation. Or sometimes people are like, I'll do it after I lose 10 pounds, or I lose 20 pounds, or I lose 30 pounds, which is just crazy to think about. I tell you, I've heard all of the excuses and I've given all of the excuses in my lifetime. And I think we need to try to put those aside because mindset is huge. It's, our brains, we're the first people that will question our ability to do something. Have you ever said like, oh, I think I'm too old, or I think it's too late for me to start this? Or I can't because I have, bad knees or bad hips or bad shoulders or bad ankles. Or my favorite is I know all these things or I know how to do this, so I should be able to do it by myself. It's kind of like, everybody on New Year's Day where we all have those New Year's revolution resolutions and we buy the gym memberships or we buy the treadmill or the elliptical thinking that just that purchase is going to motivate us to work out. And then the next thing we know, we're using that elliptical or treadmill as like a clothes drying rack, or it's just kind of it's just in the way, or we're putting it on, selling it on Facebook Marketplace for half of what we bought it for. Um, and then lastly, the one thing that holds many of us back is not having anyone in your corner, anyone that's a positive support or a positive influence to keep, pushing you forward. And I stress positive because, we can have support in our life, but it might be a spouse that's like, but I don't want to eat healthy, and they're ordering pizza or they're, putting ice cream in the freezer or cookies. And it's harder for you to stick with what you're trying to do. These are the main areas. These are the main areas that I try to make my programs around. So you can see like this challenge. I was like 30-minute workouts. I know you're busy. I know we don't have a lot of time. I don't want that to be a question. 30 minutes workouts. Anybody can find 30 minutes in their day to get a quick workout in. Um, and then obviously the support is such a big piece of that. And I want women to be empowered and get rid of that fear. It's like you can do this. You can lift weights, you can build muscle, you can be more confident with your body and how you feel in your skin. You can do that. Even though it looks a little bit different, Your body's going to look a little different than when we were in our 20s and 30s. Any of these resonate with you guys? Do you guys feel like any of these things kind of hold you back from being more consistent with an exercise or a nutrition regimen?
Minus time.
Time. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. That's a common one.
Mine is mindset.
Okay.
Just getting my
Kind of
priority.
getting in. Do you feel like it's the motivation piece?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It it can be challenging. And sometimes it's just a matter of taking that first step, right? Because I find that, exercise programs, you will start to enjoy them. You will start to feel like I like how I feel. I like how I have more energy. I like how my clothes are fitting better. I like how I get those endorphins flowing and I feel happier. All of the above. Okay, so let's chat a little bit about the missing link, and we've already touched on that a little bit, but that missing link, it's not this magic one single exercise like a sit up or a push up or a magic pill or one food that I'm going to tell you you should never eat this again or you should eat loads of this. It's not quite that easy, but the first piece is that consistency piece, right? Because the more repetitions you can get, the more times that you can just do it, even if you're not doing it perfectly, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe, you didn't get a 30-minute workout and you only got 15. Or maybe you didn't quite, push yourself hard enough with the weights. Regardless of how it looks, just getting that repetition and just doing one more thing, just trying it one more day, one more time. Second is we talked about the sticking with that progressive plan. So moving forward with, continuing to challenge your muscles, even if it makes you, a little sore the next day, that will get easier. Your muscles will get used to it. You will get stronger from it. Initially, that can just be a little challenging, right? Because people, you don't want to be crying when you're trying to squat down to sit on the toilet because your legs are so sore. And then lastly, that the support piece is so important, right? Because life gets busy, we get discouraged, we get frustrated, and we need something that just keeps us moving forward and doesn't let us say, screw this. I don't
Mhm.
want to do it anymore. It's too hard. Think about how many times have you started a diet or a plan or a program only to quit because you had a vacation or you had an illness or you had a party or a birthday or something you were planning or you just got busy. I would say, most women quit just when they're kind of on the cusp of starting to see those results. So having kind of that plan and that accountability is what helps keep us moving forward. And I know that's not sexy. It's not like, oh, this is so, here's this one simple answer that's going to
Mhm.
get you everything that you want. This is not the GLP-1 of exercise, unfortunately. So that's what I can tell you for the mindset though is such a change is stop looking at it like I need this to happen tomorrow. I
Mm.
need to lose 20 pounds in a month or I need to, get stronger in a week. Look at it as like this is my life. This is the long term. I want to be active for the rest of my years I have on this earth. I want to, like I said, I want to travel. I want to hike. I want to, play with my grandkids. But change that view to like, I need to do this forever. I know that might seem a little depressing, but I promise you, you will get to where you like it. You will enjoy it as you put in that reps and you get that consistency. So I told you I wanted to, oh, sorry. Nope. I got ahead of myself. So the way that we can stay on track for the long term is we build habits instead of chasing those short-term fixes. Keep putting in those repetitions. We don't quit when we get sidetracked. Have any of you guys read James Clear Atomic Habits? I know, yes, I know some of you have heard me talk about this before.
Mhm.
It's a powerful book. It's a very simple book. It's a very powerful book. But basically he just talks about how can you make things habits? How can you be more successful at creating positive habits? And how can you get rid of your bad habits, right? So he talks about making those good habits easy, taking away those barriers that are keeping you from following through and doing them, setting yourself up for success. And some of the things he talks about is like pairing that habit that you want to ingrain, pairing it with something that you enjoy. So maybe you maybe you really like to watch I don't know what show. I don't know what show I have in my brain. Maybe you really like to watch Friends episodes. So you say you can only watch Friends episodes while you are doing your workout. You have it on the TV or whatever. But you're kind of pairing that so it's something that you do, or you're making it easier in the sense that maybe you know that you need to work out in the morning before you go to work. So you lay out your workout clothes right there. So it's like you see them when you get up in the morning, you know that you put them on and you go do that. That's kind of just part of your routine. And the more repetitions, the more times you do that, the easier it's going to be. So that, and then on the opposite hand is, make those negative habits difficult. So I don't know why I always come up with this one, but like, say you like to stop by the gas station and get a donut on your way to work. And you get to where you almost get in your car and get on your way to work and you start to salivate. It's like Pavlov's dog, right? You start to salivate thinking about the donut that you're going to get at the gas station. So it's like it just becomes a habit. Or I was talking to somebody today and they said, yeah, I have a glass or two of wine every night with dinner. She said, just because that's what everybody else in my family does. We all sit down, we have a glass or two of wine with dinner. And so I said, okay, so how do we change up that habit? She goes, well, there are certain days that I don't have wine with, or that I don't have dinner with my family. Whereas she was still having a glass or two of wine. She goes, I think what I'll do is I limit it to only when I'm having dinner with my family. But so changing things up. So like, that donut at the gas station. So maybe rather than going that way by the gas station to get your donut in the morning, maybe you change routes. Maybe you go a different
Mhm.
route. Maybe instead of, having that donut, maybe you have breakfast at home before you even leave so that you're full and you're not going to be craving that to that degree. Maybe you'll feel more satisfied. But just thinking about it like that, how can you set yourself up for success? How can you make those positive changes that you want to ingrain into your daily routine? How can you make those easier? And how can you make kind of those more negative ones harder? So next we're gonna, I want you to focus rather than on the scale and just that number on the scale. I want you to focus on that long-term strength and energy goals. Or maybe it's like you want to lower your cholesterol. Maybe you want to lower your blood pressure. Maybe you want to lower your blood sugars. These are things that are going to carry you much further than just that number on the scale.
Mhm.
Not to mention, when we're building muscle, we're not going to see that number drop on the scale to the degree, um, to the degree, it's not going to show that true picture of if you're actually losing fat and gaining muscle, you're not going to see that number on the scale change to that degree. So you have to focus instead maybe on inches, on how your clothes fit. And I promise, if fat loss is your goal, it's going to come with these changes and without your obsession about it. It will come. So next is celebrating every win, whether you're lifting a little heavier, maybe you have a little bit less joint pain, your knee doesn't hurt you more as much. Maybe you can climb the stairs without getting out of breath. You have better endurance
Mhm.
or better stamina. Next is anchoring your workouts into your schedule. And I tell all my clients is this, schedule it. Put it on your calendar, put it in your phone, set an alarm for it, and just create a routine. So maybe if you're going to do strength training 3 days a week, maybe you just like Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the morning before work. That is when I'm going to do it. So therefore, you get up on Monday morning, this is one of my days. rather than kind of haphazard, at the end of the week, you're like, oh, I wanted to get in 3 workouts this week, but it's already Saturday, and I haven't done any. Set yourself up for success, and surround yourself with people who get it. There is a saying that we rise or fall to the level of the people we surround ourselves with. If you think about it, people in AA, basically they tell them, you can't hang with the same friends or go to the same places that you used to go before because you're going to associate that with drinking. You need to change things up. You need, if those friends are still drinking, you can't hang with them anymore. Or if you think about like a CrossFit gym, they have this huge group of people and they're all pushing each other to do their workouts and go a little heavier and they're motivating them. Or think about it like, like I said before, maybe your hubby is, it's a Friday night. He's like, I want pizza or I want to have a glass of wine. Or how much are you going to be more likely to go, oh, okay, I'll just have a piece or a glass. So, and also I think a big piece of that is making sure, telling your friends or your family what your goals are. Because this is about making your health and well-being non-negotiable. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about my client Cindy. So she is one of my longest running clients. We've been working together for about 3.5 years, and her name is Cindy, and she was one of my first clients when I left the hospital and started my business. I actually worked with her in the cancer center in the hospital because she's an oncology nurse, and she is amazing, and she okayed me to tell you a little bit about her story. So I started working with her in January of 2022. At that time, she was 59. She had a history of breast cancer. She was diagnosed in 2019 and she didn't have to have chemo. She did have radiation therapy. This is a picture of her back in 2019. Or no, sorry, this is her, I think it was in 2022. So this was before we started working together. Um, because of the therapy that she's on for breast cancer, it's called a Arimidex, it can cause bone loss. She was diagnosed with osteopenia, and that just means that her bones are getting more brittle, not full-blown osteoporosis. They're just her bones are getting smaller. She has high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, and the biggest thing is when she was younger as a nurse, she had to move a patient and had a pretty bad back injury because of it. And from that, she's got degenerative disc disease. And she actually, when we first started working, had something called a drop foot. So what that means is she had one foot, if she was going up the stairs, she would go up the stairs with her right foot. She'd bring her left foot up and then she'd have to go up the next stair with the right foot. She could never put full weight on that left foot because it just wasn't strong enough and she almost kind of dragged it behind her. So she started basic strength training 3 days a week with me. We went either no weight at all, body weight, or really light weights. But we started doing a lot of balance and stability exercises and single leg and core exercises, just very basic. And then, we also created just a really basic nutrition plan. She started with small changes, just like increasing her protein, balancing her meals better, and then decreasing her sugar intake. So here's Cindy today. She's 63. She has lost 33 pounds from her highest weight, and she's maintained it for the past 2 years. She has to get a DEXA scan to see kind of what her bone density is every single year because she's on this medication. And over the past 3 years, it has improved every single year. And this year, they officially removed osteopenia from her diagnosis because she no longer has that. Her left foot is now nearly as strong as her right foot. And most importantly, when she tweaks her back, which her back's not perfect, she still will do silly things at home, like turn really quickly or pick up her dog improperly or something like that. And she might tweak it. It feels a little tight. Where she used to be like in bed for weeks at a time and needing steroids and pain meds and stuff like that. Now she might, need to rest it or go do a little bit lighter workout, but she bounces back so much faster. She is now added in kickboxing once a week, which she just absolutely loves. She still loves sweets, but she is able to focus more on that protein, being, using moderation and enjoying her sweets every now and then, and just being more mindful about, listening to her body when she's hungry, when she's full, and she no longer feels out of control with them. She has lowered her A1C and her blood sugars as well. And most importantly, she no longer obsesses with weighing herself every single day, but focuses more on like how she feels, how strong she is, her energy levels, and her health. And she has come to love and look forward to strength training. She swears by it being, like her mental and her physical therapy. And her confidence in her abilities is just, it is skyrocketed. It is just hilarious. Um, and the reason why I'm telling you Cindy's story is because as women, we underestimate what we can do. We are our worst critics, and we can so quickly build up others while tearing ourselves down. So, have you ever met a woman that, looks at a picture that was taken of herself and says, I look amazing. I look really good.
Huh.
No, you know what we say? We say,
Yeah.
yeah. We go, oh, look, I look fat, or my hair looks funny, or I wish I wasn't standing like this, or, why did I do that to my makeup? We just are constantly picking ourselves apart. And I just want to show you that you can come to love yourself and how you look again and be proud of what you accomplished. I promise you. Okay. So this past week, we had a little taste of what's possible. We did those quick and effective workouts. We did simple nutrition strategies, and you had that kind of daily accountability. Not to mention, we had a lovely group of women who, what's nice about, everybody kind of being the same age and going through the same thing is because we intimately understand each other. We understand, they understand what you're feeling, they understand what you're going through. And, this is just scratching the surface because we need to stop thinking in the short term quick fix. When we make these just small, sustainable changes that are easy and not restrictive or too hard, we might not see fat loss or strength drain or decrease in blood pressure or cholesterol in 5 days. But imagine, where you'd be after doing this. What if you were consistently doing this for 8 weeks or 6 months or a year? Imagine where you'd be at the end of that. So that leads me into, I told you we'd talk a little bit about the Fit After 50 boot camp. So I just want to touch on for anybody that might be interested in kind of continuing their momentum along. It's basically an 8-week program, and it's designed specifically for women over 50. This week, you got a little taste of what we do in boot camp. It's a lot. We get a lot more kind of more personal attention. We do a personal macro assessment, like I was telling you, to kind of help you to reach your specific health and wellness goals, whether that's fat loss, whether that's strength gain, whether that's just increasing your energy levels or just feeling better in your skin. And what it contains is there's 4 strength workouts per week in that same, trainerized program that you guys have been working in. One thing is we have weekly accountability calls, and what we do on these is I'll talk a little while just about each of those areas. We talked about mindfulness and moderation, and some of those other areas like food journaling and like I talked about alcohol, sleep, stress, just those things that can really make a difference. But we talk a little bit about those, but more importantly, it's kind of your chance to be able to in real time ask questions and kind of, get to know each other and have that support. So, having those other women around you that are kind of doing that same thing. And because you're in the challenge, I am offering a discount of $100 off. So anybody that is interested in joining the Fit After 50, plus boot camp, you get it for $397. If you join before September 22nd, which would be like next Monday, And then on the 23rd, the price will increase up to the full price cost of $497. So I know, this program's not for everybody. It's not for women. It is for women over 50, although I do make exceptions for women if they're in their upper 40s if they want to join. But it does not have the live workout classes, or if you have a doctor telling you shouldn't be doing strength training, that is probably not a program for you. But it's just basically for anybody who wants just a little more guidance and support to really get consistent with some of the changes that we've made over this past 5 days. So anybody wants to speak individually about the program, or if it would be right for you, I am going to set out a link, and you can set up a free call. I'd love to chat with you more about it, or you can even just stay on tonight if you have any questions. Yeah, so then what about questions, whether about the Fit After 50 or about just anything else? Does anybody have any questions, anything specifically about kind of their workout program, or what they're interested in doing, their goals? I am gonna stop my share for just a second. There we go. Hello, everybody. Nice to see your face. Hi, Diana. It's nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. Anybody have any questions? Was anybody sore this week after any of the workouts?
I was my booty.
Your
I
booty?
was too.
Yeah. Which mostly, was it from legs or arms or
Mine was mostly for legs. Yeah.
legs? Okay. Yours was from arms, Diana?
Mine was arms. Yeah.
There we go. Did you
Hey,
get through all the workouts?
I'm about to do today's tonight after we disconnect.
There we go. Oh
I'm,
yeah, and
I'm,
that's a shorter one too, so
oh,
it won't
good.
take you as long to do. Get some
If you
ab
can't
workout.
if you can't get all the sets in and you don't allocate enough time, and I go back and do it later, it's
Absolutely. So I
there's
was
still a
telling everybody, I
benefit.
think before you got on, I was telling
Okay.
everybody that you'll have access all through next week as well. So you can go back, you can redo workouts, you can make up the ones that you didn't get to. You'll have time.
Okay.
All right. Fantastic. Well, I just want to, so basically, the key takeaways I want you to come out of this with is that, unfortunately, cardio alone is not enough. We need to do strength training. And most importantly, we need to have that progressive overload to keep challenging ourselves, to keep fatiguing those muscles. And consistency is the key. Just keep on doing it. Even if it doesn't look perfectly, just keep on doing it, right? And nutrition is an important piece. I hate to say it, but we can't work out a crappy diet. So it's important for us to also, make sure we're getting enough protein, because that's a huge piece. Like if we're fatiguing those muscles, if we don't give them the protein to get stronger and to actually rebuild, we're not going to see those results. So the protein piece is huge as well. So tonight, anybody who is on, could you ladies just put in the chat your email address, because I'm going to be sending you all the high protein meal plan. A brand new one, I promise. It's like all new recipes and stuff. So yeah, if you could throw that in there, and then anybody who is interested, like I said, in the Fit After 50 Bootcamp, you will be getting some emails that will have like the link so that you can get the discount if that's something that you would like to do. Yeah, otherwise, please, tomorrow is full body workout. So it's going to be a good one. This one goes back to it, it'll be under 30 minutes. And then tomorrow we're focusing on our dinner, our evening meal, trying to get a nice macro balanced meal. So similar to that lunch.
Excellent.
All right. Awesome. Well, sorry we went a little bit over this evening. Do anybody have any other questions, thoughts? Thank you for sending me your emails. I will be, hopefully I'm going to download the replay for this, and then I'll send out the meal plan tonight. So
Great info.
fantastic. Well, you ladies are awesome. Thank you for the discussion. I hope you have a wonderful night.
You too.
Nice to see you, Kim.
Yes, nice to see you guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
doing, kitty?